Hi, I'm Bob from Plastic Pipe Shop, and in this video we're going to have a look at how to repair a broken piece of pipe. So I've got on the table here a length of pipe, and we've cut the broken section out and we can chuck that away. But now what we've got to do is try and get a section of pipe back in here again. Now the problem with a lot of pipe systems is that these two pipes on either side might be pretty well fixed in place. They might even be concreted in, and this is just a little bit in the middle. Either that, or we'd have to take a huge amount of pipe work out to be able to get enough movement to use ordinary sockets. If we were using ordinary sockets, it's fine, we can glue the socket on here and we can glue the socket onto here. But then what we've got to do is to get enough pipe movement to come out and back into those sockets. And in a lot of systems we just don't have that. The other problem with using sockets is if it's a pipe system in a process line, we've got to glue these sockets on. So depending on what pressure we're operating on, ideally we've got to wait maybe 12 to 24 hours before we can actually get the system back into operation again. We can overcome the problem of having to move the pipe back and forth by using unions. If we use a union on either side of here, we can then unscrew this part of the union, put it on a pipe on this side, unscrew the other side and put it on here. Remember, we're still having to glue these on. We can now slot our piece of pipe straight in and we can tighten up. Now if we are using unions, we have to really make sure that our measurements are bang on accurate, especially if there's no movement at all in these pipes, because it's important when this goes in that when we tighten the unions up that it seals on this EDPM O-ring inside. If we make this slightly too short, we can tighten this side up, but this side is never actually going to tighten up enough because there's not enough movement in the pipe. It's a method we can use and a method which is used, especially if you've got just a tiny bit of movement in the pipe, it's fine. We've still got that problem though of gluing onto the pipe, so we'll have to wait for that glue to set before we can repressurise the system. Our next option, if we're running as a low pressure system, this is the simplest option of all, is to use EPDM couplers. Now these ones will operate only at about 0.5 to 0.6 bar pressure. So that's the equivalent of 5 or 6 metres of head of water. They simply go on either side. The nice thing about these, we can slide them right the way up. We can put our piece of pipe in the middle and then we can slide these back over the top and we can then just tighten up the O-rings. Okay, so it's a really quick fix, a really nice fix, but we are limited with pressure. For 65mm and above fittings, we do also supply a rubber coupling which has extra reinforcing steel around it, and that'll take up to 2.5 bars, so that's 25 meters of pressure, which is probably more than most of you are using in your systems. Finally, and the king of all fittings, is to use a compression coupling like this. So a compression coupling has a thick O-ring inside, not really an O-ring, it's more a flat ring really, inside, which sits against a seal, and then a union which tightens up, and as it tightens up it compresses that flat seal inside and compresses it down onto the pipe because it's got nowhere else to go because it's held in. So the nice thing with these is that these will slide onto the pipe and they'll go right up the pipe just like our rubber couplings, then they'll slide down the pipe onto our pipe in the middle. Okay, exactly the same way as the rubber couplings. To get them onto the pipe, you need to take the O-ring out, slide the union up, and then work the O-ring on, and you can slide it up. You can use some lubricants. If it's not a RAS approved application, you can maybe use a little bit of fairy liquid, or there are some RAS approved lubricants you can use that just help slide it up and slide it back down the pipe, and they won't affect the seal which you get. Now the nice thing about these fittings is that these will take up to 10 bar. So if you use these compression fittings, so that we slide them up, put our pipe in the middle, we can slide them back, we can tighten it up, and bingo, our system's ready to go straight away, and we can whack it up to 10 bar immediately. Here's our options. Just to recap, We've got the sockets, which is the easiest and cheapest option, but we need to have movement in the pipe and we need to wait for that solvent cement to seal. We've got unions, which overcomes the bit of the movement of the pipe. If it's a larger pipe, for example a 6-inch pipe or an 8-inch pipe or that kind of size, we can use flanges in exactly the same way rather than unions. So that overcomes the movement of the pipe, but it doesn't overcome having to wait for that solvent cement to cure. We've got our rubber couplings, which overcome the movement in the pipe, overcome the time waiting to cure, so we can get the system back into operation really quickly, but it's only at low pressure. And then we have our compression couplings, which overcome the movement of the pipe and also overcome the time for repair, meaning we can get the system back into operation at high pressure if we want, really quickly. I hope that helps you. Thanks very much for watching. Bye.